Great way to end. Let's see what we learned from this game. So, today we learned. Let's go ahead and change that to entire game. To CD Projekt Red and then compare the quality of product. So the entire game of Indigo Prophecy, we learned about the Shakespearean play Tempest, themes of conjure, illusion, and deception. And the Shakespearean play about Tempest deals with a pair of brothers who felt betrayed by one, supposed to be the rightful ruler of Milan, and he's betrayed by his brother and banished to a raft where he ends up on an island, and he has books with him, and those books give him powers, and he's on the island. And sooner or later, he encounters a ship carrying his brother, and now the King of Naples. And the King of Naples is the one who took his rightful place as ruler of Milan. And he makes their ship crash on the island and exacts revenge on both of them. But he doesn't kill them, he just kind of punishes them for the actions. And then the storyline kind of puts you in the role of being a righteous person and forgiving and giving them a chance to redeem themselves, and then taking back your rightful place and making sure that your daughter has a nice husband along the way. And it's supposed to be a final bow out, a final salute to Shakespeare as his last play. And the play ends with him asking the audience to give him a final bow out with a round of applause. So there are certain elements in that play that kind of speak to the game. You know, the two brothers, and maybe how one felt betrayed because one went one way, one went the other way. But Lucas never wanted to extract revenge on his brother Marcus, and vice versa. And that's what he was reading before he got possessed. Unless that deals with the way the Orange Clan, Purple Clan felt about the human race. But I can kind of see how there are some elements that tie together. Good choice. The classic sci-fi movie Forbidden Planet is also based on Tempest. I did not know that. I don't know why at first I read that as Lost Planet, and I was like, hold on a second, Capcom would not do anything like that to put Tempest in there, with all due respect to Capcom. But given their history with things like Devil May Cry, Dragon's Dogma, and Lost Planet, I wouldn't see Capcom doing that. But I'll have to check out Forbidden Planet and watch that. Book gave him powers, that's all that was used for. The game touches base on video game violence in the computer newsroom. When you look at the articles on the computer, it tells you about the video game violence and kind of touches base on that a little bit. Also tells you about Islamabad, which is the capital city of Pakistan, and kind of parallels with what was going on in the United States and Iraq at that time in 2005. Also, the main character, well, I guess you can call him the main character, Lucas Kane's favorite book was Thus Spoke Zarathustra by Friedrich Nietzsche, which is a book about a man named Zarathustra who wakes up from a 10-year absence of being away from the human race and has like a decree he wants to give to them about how you should be living your life free of the ties that bind you. That is like moral corruption and the way you should live with certain things, and how society tells you to live life and how you should be free of all that and live it a certain way. And he keeps telling these prophets and disciples that you're doing it all wrong and religion's all wrong, you should be doing it this way, and he keeps failing to give them the right message. And sooner or later he ends up back in his cave, and they all come back to him, and the smartest and wisest and richest men find him again in his cave and say, teach us the right ways. And he finds out that he was right all along, and the cycle repeats itself, and they're doomed to blah 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 blah. But anyway, it's a lot of religious overtones. Which, here's the cool thing about the game too, since we're discussing this intellectually I guess, is that Marcus and Lucas were both raised as, I guess, religious men on a military base. You know, they both had the crosses above their bed, they had religious scientific parents, and along the way, Lucas stopped believing in that stuff, but Marcus kept believing it and became a preacher. Yet, it's the brother, Lucas Kane, who ends up reading about Thus Spoke Zarathustra by Friedrich Nietzsche, and he says it's his favorite book, and he has most passages memorized line by line. It makes me wonder if Lucas Kane's entire beliefs are similar to the way that Friedrich Nietzsche feels about religion, at least paralleled in that book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, and that's why his favorite book is that. Devil May Cry is based on Divine Comedy, aka Dante's Inferno, and by that I mean takes names from. Right. Zarathustra is his version of Jesus. Right. Maybe that's why Marcus feels that way. You know? Not Marcus, but Lucas. Stepped away from his brother, doesn't believe in religious stuff like his brother does. Maybe it was the way he was raised, I don't know. But he believes in the way that Friedrich Nietzsche writes about it through Zarathustra. And that's why it's his favorite book. And that's why I like this kind of element right here that we're discussing, is that there's certain gameplay elements that we can learn from. I think a lot of video games don't make things very blatant, right? I guess I don't expect Xbox games or Genesis games to give you options to say, like, you're playing Sonic the Hedgehog. While you're playing, you can go to the options menu and learn about hedgehogs. Here's why they're mammals, you know, here's their mating habits, and here's their temperature habits and their eating habits. Here's their max speed and max height. It'd be cool if they did, but I think there are tools that video games can use to be educational. So if I'm playing this game, at least for me, or if I'm a parent and I'm raising a child, and they're asking questions, I'm going to ask them, you know, what is the Shakespearean play Tempest, and why is that important in a video game? If I'm playing it and my parents aren't around, and I read about Thus Spoke Zarathustra, I'm going to wonder, why is that Lucas Kane's favorite book? Is there a reason that was put into the game? You know, I think video games have so much to teach you and learn from, but if we were a negative Nancy, I think this game is one of the ones that we would look to as like being an overall bad game for kids, right? You would say, oh, there's rituals and stabbings and violence in the heart, and it makes fun of religion, and it talks about religion, and there are sex scenes, and that's why it's a bad game. We don't look to the educational value, which has a Shakespearean play, education about geography, or great reading material. I mean, this is a smart game in certain ways, you know? Also, Sprach Zarathustra by Strauss is a classic music clip. What does Sprach mean? Was that his first name? Used in 2001: A Space Odyssey. Ah. I don't think you wanted to include that in a kid's game. Yeah, you're probably right. Also, the entire thing about the heart cut sacrifice ritual didn't make sense until they explained that it was a Mayan thing. And I think it was maybe Big Boss who said later on that that's an actual thing that used to take place. Like, I think he Wikipedia'd and found out that Mayans actually did have a sacrifice ritual where they cut the heart out, and it was part of their ritual. And in the game, they have the museum where they have the golden plates and the golden chalices and golden doubloons and all that was used during the sacrifices. So all that's really neat there too. I'm sorry, Awesome Brand, it was you. I apologize, sir. And Spoke, that makes sense. That was my first guess. Sprach Zarathustra. Got it. Also talks about Chiapas in Mexico, which borders the Pacific Ocean, and Guatemala, which is the site of a historical Mayan architecture, which the game talks on too. So that's another thing you can explore in your own time too. There's also a typo in the game when you're talking to the professor of Mayan history, and these subtitles use the incorrect form of your. They use the contraction version, U plus RE, when it should be the possessive version, your. So, kudos to me for finding out that the game has a spelling error, and their grammatical error rather. And kudos to Awesome Brand for taking ownership over knowing about Mayans. I think that's the second game I've found a spelling error inside of. Tactics Ogre also had a grammatical / spelling error in their game. So I played maybe 2 out of 4 games that have spelling errors or grammatical errors, which is sad. Also, Carla isn't allowed to be strong and independent, and what that speaks to is that Carla, Tommy, the next door neighbor, even if I don't know if he was gay. I mean, the wine together and everything else and the passion, but she needed no man whatsoever. But it wasn't until the world was on the brink of death and they were all freezing negative 65 degrees in the subway system that she finds out that she loves Lucas. I mean, this romance was forced. And I think it was a very forced romance because Tyler's out of the picture. He's not used anymore. Marcus is pretty much out of the picture. He's just sitting by the campfire. He isn't being used anymore, which is weird that you have 4 main characters you can switch between, and one of them you eliminate / push to the side, and then 2, you have Marcus who's kind of pushed to the side, so you get Carla and Lucas as the only remaining the last remaining characters. And the logic is, well, we have 2 characters left, 1 female, 1 male. Let's make them fall in love quickly to give the game some content later on, some context rather. But that... Tommy says he met a guy at work and talks about how he thought New York accepted gayness until he got there. Okay. Got it. So... yeah, Tommy is gay. Neighbor friend. Okay. That makes more sense. So that absolves Carla from falling out of love with one person and in love with another person, but it doesn't absolve the game from making her fall in love with Lucas so quickly, especially since Lucas, the sociopath, loses his ex-girlfriend, ex-fiancée, who was deeply in love with, and he said he was still in love with, to a fall where she dies, and he's quickly falling in love with Carla after that. I don't know, man. It sucks. But thank you for the education, awesome and plain. That does make a bit more sense to that. I also learned to call the guy who spell checks Hitler's speeches. Yes, a grammar Nazi. Kudos to Big Boss for being ass. And the last thing we learned was a word, obstinate. I try to find a good word out of every game, if not one, then at least 4,000 of them, but in this game I only saw one that stood out. Obstinate is an adjective, which means stubbornly refusing to change one's opinion, or very difficult to change or overcome. So very, very, very fun thing. So the entire game play was about, let's see, I think the last sequence I was at 9.5 hours, so I probably finished it in 10 hours. So Indigo Prophecy, 10-hour game, and we learned quite a few things about geography, a lot of things about literature, and a lot of things about female tropes that are included in video games. But mostly this was an educational game about literature, I would say. So, is this a game you can learn something from? I would say the answer is... Actually, I'll leave it to you guys. We'll do a straw poll, because I love straw polls. Does this game have value? Yes. No. There we go. There you go, guys. There's your straw poll. You can let me know how you feel about it. Based on all 10 hours of Indigo Prophecy, if you were a parent, if you were a child, if anybody else, does this game have educational value? Then once you guys finish voting, I'll just kind of let you know what I think about Mia. Taking a look at chat real quick. I'm glad Nighty's still in here. That makes me happy. Hello, Nighty. So there are 6 of us in here, not counting me. That's 5 people. And here. We have 3 votes, so I'm okay with that. I'm guessing it's Awesome Brand, Big Boss, and Plain Insane. Well-developed Burrito is probably off doing God knows what. Hello, Nighty. So right now you guys think 3 votes for yes and 1 vote for indifferent. So Burrito's AFK, I'm assuming, and I'm in here as well. So 4 total votes. Majority of you feel that yes, this game is educational. I'm inclined